Siomra Beag.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Michael and Benjamin's podcast. Welcome back to the Siomra Beag. Welcome back to the digital tiny room. I'm the Michael of Michael and Benjamin's podcast, and I am joined by the man who is Ireland's leading Hunter S. Thompson enthusiast and impressionist. It's Benjamin.
Yeah, bats everywhere. Las Vegas. That was
Rick from Rick and Morty. Benjamin.
In fairness, I think Rick from Rick and Morty is 90% Hunter S. Thompson.
You have a little sip of your coffee there, Benjamin.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. A bit of ASMR for the listeners. And why don't you provide us with a bit of a theme music?
Do you want me to whisper it?
Yeah.
Theme music for the podcast. We don't actually have any theme music.
Gross. Benjamin. Speaking of gross things that had happened in the continuing grossness of the year 2020, legend of screen and stage, but mostly screen and slapping his wife, Sean Connery has died.
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, he passed away there.
Yeah, 90 there. Look, Ben, as we say on the podcast, he had a good innings.
Yeah, 90 is not early for anybody.
It's a good innings, Ben.
Yeah, he did very well. Also, probably one of the more iconic faces to outlast the 60s, despite having not worked in close to 40 years.
What?
So since the 90s, isn't it? 90s was the last kind of hurrah for Sean Connery. The Rock.
Well, he was in The Rock, but he was also in The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, I forgot about The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. The movie that ended his career.
Yeah. He was... When was that? When was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I don't know.
That was
I'll look it up now.
I'd have to say 2007? Was it 2007?
If you get this right, Michael, I'll be so impressed.
I think it might have been around 2007. But Benjamin, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was not 40 years ago, Ben. It was 13 years ago.
Sorry, my brain forgot.
You're quite a way off there.
My brain stopped at Last Crusade.
Yes.
I just didn't want to go any further.
Well, the 80s were definitely the height of his popularity and power. But, I mean, that means, Ben, 90. He's 90 now, so he was 70 in the year 2000, Benjamin.
Michael, do you want a bit of bad news?
Oh, no. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was 1998.
No, it wasn't. It was 2003.
Oh, that's not as far off as I thought it was. But that was only 17 years ago, Ben. Which probably seems like a long time to you, as you are
actually, yeah.
a young fellow, but it's really not a long time ago. But Benjamin, you can see why he had no interest in being in Lord of the Rings at 70.
Well, would you? Who was he supposed to play in Lord of the Rings?
He was going to be Gandalf.
Get out of town.
Yeah, he read through the script and he went, "What the bloody hell is all of this going on here?" No, I've done Ian McKellen.
you shall not pass.
Yeah,
you won't do it.
I'll give you a slap, boy.
I'll give you a slap and send you to the morgue.
Yeah.
Balrog. You saucy minx.
Yeah. He was
just
good
going
though,
to do the
wasn't
whole podcast like this now. In tribute.
Brilliant. Excellent.
Of course, Michael, we probably can't continue without acknowledging his greatest role.
Go on.
The man who launched 1,000 movies and an entire franchise, bloody James Bond.
He was in James Bond, Ben, famously.
Famously in James Bond.
Yeah, famously, one of the actors who played James Bond was Sean Connery.
In no way influential on that role at all.
Yeah. A second to many people's mind to Timothy Dalton.
the esteemed George Lazenby being top of the list.
One of the best. He was one of the best James Bonds. All right, Ben, look, I know he's 90. 90's a good innings, Ben.
He's fine.
It doesn't strike me as tragedy. Like he retired, he lived out his final years with his family in the comfort of being a very rich man. You know,
with dementia.
Yeah. Did he have dementia?
He did. He was struggling with dementia.
But, he's 90. He had a good innings. Benjamin, what else is going on in the world?
Nothing, Michael.
Oh, excellent.
We've just celebrated All Hallows Eve. The world has been cleansed, and we're just waiting now for stuff to happen. Very
good, Benjamin. I've been continuing to watch the TV series Hellstrom.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Still putting yourself through that, are you?
Still putting myself through it, and it's still on the good side of fine.
Well, that's good. That's a win.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's
There was a bit of action in this week's episode. There was people doing a high kick.
High kick?
People doing a high kick in a leather trouser. It was like watching the 90s television again then. The 90s television was back.
That's very good. Bloody...
Yeah, it's fine.
1998's The Avengers starring Uma Thurman and Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah, it was people doing a high kick in a leather trouser, Ben, and
Nice.
it's still no connection to the Marvel Cinematic Universe whatsoever.
Somebody
And I've
mentioned
seen-
a superhero for half a second. They're like, nope, no.
No, we don't do that here. I've seen people on Reddit going, "Is this a Marvel show?" So yeah, it's fine though. It's totally fine.
It's grand. Does the job.
Yeah.
Does the job, lads.
Benjamin, the other thing that came out this week was the Mandalorian. What were we calling it before?
The Silmarillion.
No, that's J.R. Tolkien, Ben. That's the prequel, the mythology of the Lord of the Rings. It's called The Mandalorian. It's about spacemen.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Is
it's
it?
back this week. I haven't seen it yet, though.
I've not watched it yet either, Michael. We're a fantastic pop culture podcast here.
What a fantastic pop culture podcast.
Really at the cutting edge of technology. And
Although famously, Ben, no great Star Wars fans are we.
That's true, Michael. No great Star Wars fans am I. No great Star Wars fans are you.
No
And-
great speaking ability people are either of us.
Look, Michael, as I said, the world's been cleansed. We're all just waiting for things to happen. The mouths are new. Everything's new. It's a whole thing. The harvest god came and cleansed the world. It's all good. It's all
Benjamin,
good, Michael. Yeah.
probably the creepiest and spookiest thing that we discovered this week was that there's another podcast called Michael and Ben's podcast.
Yeah, I don't. Look, we're not going to be threatening, right? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But we're 200 and something episodes in. No, we're 180 something episodes in here.
Yeah, Benjamin, it's we've been saddled with this name after, some people would say an initial poor choice 3 years ago or
That's
whatever
me.
it was.
I say
Yeah,
that.
it was you. You say that, yeah. But what startles me is that someone else would then make exactly the same mistake.
Yeah, and well, in fairness, they've added a little thing that lets you know what the podcast is about. It's.
Right,
Are
right.
we going to say their name on the podcast?
I think, well, we clearly have already, haven't we?
It's Michael and Ben's take on life. I
Yeah.
don't know how I feel about that,
Yeah.
but
What's
I
your
do
take
know,
on life?
Michael, that as
Yes.
a result of that, I want to start a fast food restaurant review podcast with you
Right.
called Michael and Benjamin's Takeout Life,
Oh, very good.
and just really, really stick
Continue
to
the cycle. Continue the cycle of bad naming conventions. I had a Camille Thai last night, Ben. It was quite good.
Was it?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I had a spicy chicken, sweet chili chicken. I don't know what it was exactly, Ben, but it was nice.
It was nice. So if you want
Had some-
more of this, ladies and gentlemen, tune in
I had
every
some-
Thursday morning. We're our new
I had-
podcast.
I had some vegetable spring rolls. They were, are quite greasy, but that's what you get when you get a spring roll, isn't it? They're a greasy little treat.
Yeah, this is the kind of in-depth, really in-depth analysis that you're going to get on our new podcast.
Michael and Benjamin's Takeaway Life.
Take out life. It has to be
What are we,
exact
Americans?
opposite. Yeah, you're fine.
Hold on. Is your contention that out is the exact opposite of on?
Clearly that I've made a huge mistake, Michael,
Yes.
and my
Yeah,
brain's
yeah.
not working.
No, it's
But
not working,
As I said, the world's anew, the harvest god came, everyth's been cleansed, and we're all just new babies sitting, waiting for the world to continue.
Speaking, Ben, of people whose brains don't work, what do
Yeah.
you think of people who are in cults? I bloody got them, Ben.
You stuck it to them, Michael. Good
I
job.
did. I got them. I got everyone in Nixium.
Good job. Good job. So, Michael,
Hello.
maybe we should clear up the harvest god cleansing the world crap that I've been spouting since the
Okay,
start
go
of
on
this
then.
podcast.
Go on then. You have a go at that.
Because this week, Michael,
Yes.
despite waiting for our Lord and Savior, the great pumpkin god, to come and cleanse the world, he didn't, because it was a load of hooey, baloney.
Right, go on.
It turns out all of it was fake, Michael, and that got me thinking we should do an episode on space cults.
Right, go on.
And so we've decided to do that, Michael, and we've decided to tackle cults are quite common in fiction, Michael. If you ever want a spooky boogeyman or a shadowy cabal of sinister people pulling strings behind the scenes, you make them a cult.
Or a shadowy government organisation.
Or a shadowy government organisation. And if you really want to go for the heavyweight title, you make it a shadowy government organisation that is secretly a cult.
Oh, like in Lex.
Yeah, remember that?
Lex is a weird show.
Yeah. Let's not talk about Lex.
Okay.
I feel like talking about Lex will conjure Lex, and then we'll have to watch Lex.
I think we might have to watch Lex, Ben.
Oh, no, we've got to watch Lex. So, Michael, in general,
It's one of the most unpleasant shows ever made, Ben. It's so weird.
it's very strange.
It's so weird.
Are we going to talk about Lex, the TV
I
show
think
Lex?
we might now. I think we might have to swing back to Lex later.
Okay.
Well, go on. We'll swing back to it.
So actually, Michael, one of the best examples I can think of kind of cult-like behaviour in recent iterations is The Boys, season 2.
Oh, yeah, the old lads down the old Church of Enlightenment.
The old Church of Enlightenment, which definitely isn't mocking a real-life version.
Yeah, Scientology.
Oh, fuck. You know there's an algorithm somewhere that's searching for any mention of it, and we're about to end up in litigation hell.
Oh, no. Or they don't go to hell in Scientology, though, do they? They will go to litigation engrams.
Yeah, something like that. Or we'll be locked in a room and tortured until we convert.
Look, I'm all right with that. As long as I'm getting some sort of attention from someone.
Michael, in fairness, I think you are probably the most cult-resistant man that I know.
Ah, Ben, you're one of the biggest cultists I've ever met. Benjamin, one of the biggest cultists.
Yeah. Anyway. One of the best depictions of cult-like behaviour is probably The Boys season 2, when the Deep and A-Train kind of get indoctrinated. Well, they don't. That's not actually what happens. What happens is they start with a fresca.
Yeah, they have a fresca, Ben. Horrid stuff.
And it kind of very, very, very lightly encapsulates the predatory actions of cults, as in finding people at their nadir, for example, the Deep.
Yeah.
And then being like, hey, buddy, you're great.
Do you want to come and join our gang?
You're great. Do you want to be in my gang? And then they offer you a fresca.
Horrid stuff.
Traditionally, I think it's probably a Gatorade or a Kool-Aid. As the vernacular would go, don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Yes, I see.
But yeah, and then we kind of see slowly how they use the Deep to indoctrinate other people and polish up his image with a fake wife from their cult.
Yeah.
And then he in turn kind of recruits A-Train.
Yeah, the interesting thing, Ben, of course, is the kind of step by step. They got someone who's a little bit famous, the archer, the golden archer, the yellow archer, whatever his name was.
I think it's something, Eagle Hawk.
Eagle the Archer.
Eagle the Archer, that's it, good man.
And then they get him, and then he gets the Deep, who's kind of disgraced, and then he gets A-Train. So, you know what I mean? They use their connections to step it up, and then they discard each one along the chain as they get a more famous one.
It's pretty interesting. And then ultimately they get Tom Cruise.
No, the A-Train. The A-Train.
The
Ben.
A-Train.
The A-Train.
But even A-Train is kind of like,
I'm not so convinced by this. But they get him in, though.
Yeah. And one of my favourite moments in that season is where the Deep has enough, and he's like, no, I've given you so much money already, I don't want the next level.
Yeah, I don't want any more engrams.
You've already taken all my money. And that kind of cultish behaviour, Michael, is littered throughout science fiction and spacey wacy timey-wimey stuff.
Go on.
So there are lots of different factors when we look at stuff like that. For example, someone might say to you, oh, you're interested in pop culture. And you'd say, yeah. And it's like, I'm really interested in pop culture as well. We have such similar interests. And you go, oh, yeah. Yeah, cool. And then they'd say, well, look, why don't we have a chat about it? And why don't we record the chat about it? And you go, yeah, it seems harmless. That seems fun.
Yeah, it seems harmless
a nice
enough,
way to explore an interest and feel valued as a member of a community. And then they say, well, now we have to keep doing it because we've put one out now and we really couldn't stop. And you say, but yeah, okay, fair enough. Until it gets good. And it's like, oh yeah, only if it gets good. Only if we get like a lot of audience and you know, there's a big uptake on it. And then we'll keep doing it. And I'm like, yeah. Not me, Michael. No, not me. Somebody.
No, this does sound very familiar, Ben, though.
Yeah.
It sounds more like you're talking about the podcast that you've been roped into.
And then they say, well, look, we'll keep going past 200 episodes because that's when we'll really start to get an uptake.
That's where we'll see it. We'll probably relaunch from episode 1 after that, and then we'll really be on the up.
And then you'll find yourself saying things like, oh man, Rick is so right. Things will get better after episode 200. And you kind of drink the cold glass of water that's given to you with every episode.
I see what you're saying here. You're implying that I'm sort of cult leader, Ben.
Yeah.
But, Ben, I think you'll find that if I were some sort of cult leader, I'd have some followers.
We don't.
My
have
Instagram has
any.
13 followers, Ben. You son of a bitch.
You are very charismatic though, Michael, and probably could start a
thank
cult if you wanted.
Look, I'll give it a go. I'll start next week.
Join the cult.
I'm going to call it Nexium. I'm going to get
Nexium.
Alison Mack from Smallville. She's going to be my first recruit.
Oh, God.
I think she's kind of open to that sort of thing generally.
If you'd like to hear more about the traditional cults, you can listen to our previous episode on cults called A Pack of Cults.
Oh, did we do an episode on cults?
Yeah, but we haven't done an episode on space cults. That's why we're doing
very
space
good, okay.
cults. So, Michael, I've broken up the cults, having done more
Right,
research
go on.
in my time, into a couple of different categories. So,
Very good.
one of the most common ones that we'll see is kind of the reluctant god or icon, where one person has a cult built around them, and they're kind of like, no.
Yeah.
Kind of a Life of Brian situation, where you're like, he's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty
a very
boy. And he's like,
naughty
I'm not
boy,
your
yeah.
Messiah, leave me alone.
Right.
So we have a little bit of that, which is
Okay,
always
I'd
fun.
like to hear about some of those, Ben.
So the number one is the first half of the book Dune
Oh, I've read the book Dune.
by Frank Herbert and young Paul Atreides.
Everyone's like, you're the Muad'Dib.
You're the Muad'Dib, and he's like, no,
I'm not the Muad'Dib.
There's no such thing as prophecies and gods. No.
Don't do a jihad.
Don't do a jihad. And then he gets everything taken away from him and he goes, do you know what? I will do a jihad.
We're going to do a jihad. Yeah, but isn't that an interesting take on the kind of danger of being a cult figure, even if you don't initially embrace it? Because the power of it was corrupting.
Ultimately, incredibly corrupting, Michael. And very
Because then
off-putting.
he's like, shouldn't have killed my wife, now I'm going to do a jihad.
Yeah, it's not great. You don't go killing wives. Don't go doing it.
Did they kill his wife or his child? They kill his child, don't they?
Which one?
In June.
Oh, yeah, they kill his child. Yeah, no, they kill his child.
His first child dies, yeah. And then he's like, that's it, jihad.
Jihad. That's it, lads. Get
That's
the
it.
jihads. We're off on a jihad.
I am the Muad'Dib. You were right. I was the Muad'Dib the whole time. Let's
the
go.
whole darn time. And that's a pretty good example for me in recent memory, mainly because I've read the book quite recently, but that's
I
a really
imagine.
good one for me. But then there's an inversion of that trope, Michael, and it's exactly what you said. It's people drinking their own Kool-Aid and kind of thinking that they are the chosen one. You'll find that a lot in the old Star Wars, Michael.
Go on.
There was a bit of debate in the final three films, Michael, as to whether Luke was one of the chosen ones or Leia was the important one. We had a little bit of back and forth, like, oh, maybe Leia's stronger than Luke. Oh.
Yeah, look at her floating in space.
Look at her floating in space. And there's a little bit of that, but Leia never gets sucked into that, whereas Luke kind of drank the Kool-Aid and then botched it all up and kind of ended up living as a hermit on a planet with no followers whatsoever. So
Luke really does commit to that lifestyle, doesn't he?
he does. No, he
He's
gives
like,
in.
I'll go in. I'm in. I'm buying into everything. What do I need to do? How many hermits do I need to be?
Start a temple. Bloody get some Padawans. Bloody
Hollow out this tree and
Do
start
it.
worshipping it.
do exactly what my dad did and tried to kill some younglings, and then it bit me in the ass.
Yeah, he does get sucked in a bit, doesn't he? Oh, Luke.
He does. This is not the first and only time we'll be mentioning Star Wars on this particular podcast, but it's an excellent example of the reluctant icon. Probably less so in general cult status, but any kind of main character in a lot of sci-fi films will end up having a following where people are like, you're the chosen one.
Neo.
And they're like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Just Mr. Johnson.
I'm Mr. Anderson, and I'm just to be left alone.
Not Mr. Johnson. Yeah.
I'm Mr. Anderson. I want to be left alone. But you'll see it again in kind of one of the interesting ones. It's not in space though, so I can't use it, but it would have been Demolition Man, where he's like the most reluctant icon of all time, and everyone's like, ooh, the 90s were such a different time. Look at this big bad Stallone.
Sean Connery was still acting.
Sean Connery was still acting, not the 80s as previously thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the reluctant icon thing. Then we have probably the one that most people are familiar with, which is the led sheep.
Go on.
Recruitment for things like that. So these are the very willing, entirely devoted, bordering on maniacal followers of a particular order, cult, ideology, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
One of the primary examples of that would be from The Expanse, Michael.
I've not seen much of The Expanse, Ben. Why don't you tell me about it?
The Expanse is very interesting, Michael. So the Church of Latter-day Saints is still a thing in The Expanse.
The Mormons.
Yes, they have survived.
Oh.
They have survived much of the time, and their order is still going very, 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 very strong.
Probably because they have so many wives.
Probably. There's a lot of stuff going on there that allows them to have many, many children and legions of followers in the future.
Oh.
So anyway,
that's interesting, Ben.
it is, isn't it? It is.
That is interesting.
And what happens with the L Expanse and the Church of Latter-day Saints, also known as the
Mormons,
Mormons, by the way, in case... Oh, you beat me to it there, Michael. Well done.
The Mormons, yeah.
The Mormons.
Yep.
One of the interesting things about them is that they've kind of gone off and built their own planet.
The planet of the Mormons.
The planet of the Mormons. It's a huge machine planet, Michael, that's self-sustaining. And they went off and built this quietly. So when the rest of the world was moving out into the stars, the Church of Latter-day Saints went, you know what? We're grand.
We're
We'll
going
do
to
our
build
own
Utah in space.
thing. We'll do our own thing. You're grand. And then off they went. And they...
And how many wives are you allowed to have on the planet of Mormon?
I'm assuming as many as you like, Michael.
Oh, excellent.
Is 7 the limit? Is 7
I
the
don't
limit?
know. I don't know enough about the Church of Mormon.
Can any Mormons who listen to the podcast get in touch with us, please, and let us know? How many wives do you have? How many would you like to have?
I'm sure we're going to have so many Mormon listeners who are going to stick with us after this episode.
Stacks. So they occasionally cross paths with some of the main characters throughout The Expanse, and they're that wonderful, creepy kind of pleasant.
Very interesting.
Until you don't do what they want, and then they're that really scary kind of pleasant.
I wonder when they wrote the script, Ben, originally, was it the Scientologists? And they decided to make it the Mormons because the Mormons are less litigious than the Scientologists.
In fairness, I think the Expanse belongs to Amazon now.
Right.
And I think the only company that can probably fully beat their chest in the face of Scientology is Amazon.
I mean, it certainly seems to be heading that way, doesn't it?
Because Jeff Bezos has his own cult going. Like, he's fine.
Yeah, and the worshippers all worship in warehouses on the line.
Exactly, it's Mammon. It's, the great god Mammon. Money, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's weird.
It's fine. He can take him. So join us next week, ladies and gentlemen, where we'll be streaming the live fight of Jeff Bezos versus the Church of Latter-day Saints and Scientology.
Yeah. I don't know if the Church of Latter-day Saints and Scientology will be terribly inclined to team up.
No, but they'll take them one after the other.
One after the other, okay.
Yeah, it's grand. And he'll still wipe the floor with both of them.
I'd pay to see Amazon unregulated capitalist greed versus the cults. That would be amazing.
In fairness, Scientology is pretty much unregulated capital greed.
Oh, well, Ben, you just said something very negative about Scientology, and I've had some friends who will be coming around to your house to talk to you later.
In a black sedan. So, that's going to be fun. That's going to be great.
Very good.
Cool. You good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, so, sorry, I thought you had
I just getting a little message there in my earpiece.
Cool. Cool. I am actually mildly nervous about this now. I might ask you to edit that out because they're
just going to send Tom.
Really want to miss it.
Just Tom's going to be coming around your gaff directly. Yeah, Tom. They're sending the big guns.
Scientologist.
Yeah. No, they're sending the big guns. Not physically big guns. Physically quite small, but in terms of clout, quite
litigiousness.
Big. Yeah.
What he lacks in body mass, he more than makes up for in litigiousness.
I don't think he ever has to be litigious because they've got the machine behind him. What's the hell? Let's stop talking about Scientology. Space cults, Ben.
So moving on.
Yes.
From that, there are several examples of that. And the kind of the led sheep element of it, the religious separatist idea in science fiction has become very popular. The idea that certain religions set out on their own when humanity began to expand itself into the universe is nothing new. That's been going since the 60s. One of the most famous examples of that would be from Arthur C. Clarke, who was a huge science fiction writer back in the day.
Yeah, he's dead now.
And he came up with a version of it called Song of the Silent Earth. There's basically the mass exodus of Earth.
Right.
And that idea was very much that different religions went out into different places and different civilizations moved to other places and they colonized different planets. And it's kind of a little trip around different planets, and you find the Church of Latter-day Saints, for example, the Roman Catholic Church, for example, has their own planet. It's all very interesting and strange.
That sounds interesting.
It's a shame that it wasn't more focused on in the book. The religious aspect is not focused on as much as other ramifications, but there are small sections about it, and it's pretty darn interesting, Michael.
That does sound pretty interesting then.
Yeah. So that was the led sheep angle of it. And then, Michael, we come to my favourite
Your favourite type of cult?
And probably the most common, the desperate masses, Michael.
Oh, go on.
And this probably falls into the field of forced indoctrination.
Go on.
And as you know, Michael, because you indoctrinated me so effectively...
Into the tiny room, into Sean Connery.
Indoctrination, through exposure to various influences in line with your way of thinking, you convert other people to your belief system. Usually not in the most pleasant of ways.
Yeah, you might record some videos of them and use it to blackmail them.
For example, Michael, if there was a cultist behind you right now...
Yeah.
And they were looking for a prime candidate, they'd look at you and go, nah, do you know what? Don't need the headache. That's going to take forever.
He's got a hood.
Whereas, if they peek in my window, they go, I'll be in and out, 5 minutes, have him on board, job.
Look at this fella. Easy peasy.
Job. And my only hope would be, Michael, is that you don't want anybody stolen from your cult, so you come and get me.
Oh, yeah, that's how I'd get you. I'd rescue you. I'd send Alison Mack personally to rescue you from our rival cult. Because she was in Smallville, remember?
She was, yeah. Jesus.
Then she went mad, though, Ben, and started recruiting people for a real-life cult. Not a joke, it's real.
I know, we did a whole episode on it, Michael.
It's mad.
So anyway, that indoctrination angle is probably the most popular for science fiction and space stuff. So the example that always sticks out firmly in my mind, Michael, and this falls into the whole hypnosis, forced belief systems and stuff like that. Brainwashing, your classics of cult-like behaviour. And the one that sticks out to me a lot, Michael, is Riddick. The Chronicles of Riddick. And the Necromongers.
The Necromongers?
Yeah, Carl Urban.
They just had Thandie Newton.
Yes.
And she'd be like, hello, I'm Thandie Newton. Would you like to be in my cult? And I'd be like, well, let me just have a quick chat with Alice and make sure it's all right. But then we'll both be along to join in a few moments.
Who bloody cares what Alison thinks? I mean...
well, you just run it by her just in case you went mad.
Fair.
Yeah.
It's very kind of you to consider the feelings of your followers as you move forward.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we're merging cults, lads. We're taking this cult and we're going and joining Thandie Newton. I don't know what their beliefs are as of yet, but she had a nice outfit on and she was very convincing.
Sold.
Yeah.
Sold. So the Necromongers are kind of fascinating within that kind of space idea because they are a huge colonizing force in space. They are literally moving from one end of the universe to the other.
Yeah.
Colonizing and destroying everything in their path.
Yeah, they're no use.
They're not great. They're not great, Michael. One of the big differences, I think, between... One of my favourite narratives is the false cult, where people are just indoctrinated towards a false belief system.
Yeah.
So
it turns out to be wrong.
Yeah, coming back to Dune, it's very much a critique of cult-like thinking and the fact that nobody is really worthy of your body and soul and mind. It doesn't work that way. And even before Paul Atreides becomes the Muad'Dib, his father, Duke Leto, inspires an almost cult-like following from his men, the likes of Gurney Halleck or, the other names escape me now. I don't know why, but anyway.
Did you say his father, Jared Leto?
His father, Jared Leto.
Yeah. Okay, good. As long as that's clear. Yeah.
Inspires a cult-like following. And if you don't, he sends you a dead mouse in the post.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty effective strategy because I don't like dead mice in the post. So, what I was saying there is what makes the Necromongers different is they do have a god. Their figurehead seems to be embodied with power beyond what is earthly or capable or human at all. He has a weird ghosty face.
This is often the weird distinguishing thing between... this even goes back... Hold on, Ben. I'm going to take a segue to the X-Files. And
go on.
And I'm sure I've talked about this before on this show. But in the X-Files, you have Mulder, the believer.
Yes.
And Scully, the skeptic.
Yes.
And the whole time, it's presented as though Scully is rational and scientific and realistic and intelligent, and Mulder is a bit of a flight of fancy lunatic.
Oh, no.
But, Ben, in that world, Scully is wrong.
Yeah.
She's a big dumb idiot.
Yep.
Because she's wrong. Mulder's right.
Every time.
Every single time, he's always right. And, like, if she's relying on the scientific method in that universe, she's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And
true.
many of the people in cults in science fiction, Ben, are right.
Yeah, that's the most interesting part. Because quite
Now-
often...
Yeah. Now, they might be evil. Like, they might be evil or misguided or something like that. But they are still factually right. They believe in this being or entity who says it's going to do this thing. And it can and does do the thing.
Yeah, it bloody does.
They can and it's not like other religions in real life, Ben, where it's all matey-uppy. These are real things that the real things can happen in that universe.
Yeah, and that's...
So...
Go on.
It's actually the more rational position in those universes to be in that cult.
Yeah.
Unless your argument is against what the cult stands for. But if your argument is just you're misguided to be believing in all of this, that's wrong because it's real.
Yeah.
It's real and true.
Yeah.
But the argument against it should be, look, I know that Bahafalthop is real, but he's a prick.
He's an
So-
awful piece of work.
Like that lad from Nexium. Don't be joining him.
He's just a bit of a prick.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if Alison Mack
Yeah.
brought you to a seminar. Just get out of there. Hey, Tandy. What's up?
What's up?
What's up,
So,
Tandy?
in general, Michael, that's a perfectly valid point. But yeah, when you look at the necromongers, their weird religion is
It's
accomplishing its
real.
task.
And it's real.
Yeah.
They're like, join the Necromunders and you can go to the heavy side layer or whatever the hell it's called. And it's true. It's real and it's true.
Yeah. And it's
It's
bizarre.
gross and horrible and wrong, but it is real.
One of my favorite things about the necromongers, Michael, is that it's very quick world building in their regard. Like, we're exposed to their mantra very early on, which is you keep what you kill. Which is very simple and very appealing if you're a big brutish lad like yourself.
Yeah, like Carl Urban.
Carl Urban is a big fan, but it also critiques the notion of blind belief. So, for example, Tandy Newton, your favourite, and Carl Urban are not believers in their immortal god. They just believe that he happens to be a particularly buff, fellow, and he has a bit of an advantage in the fact that he has a weird spooky head that runs ahead of him.
Yeah, and they're like, we could probably sneak up behind him and stab him.
Exactly,
I
and
reckon.
they're constantly like, we could just...
I reckon we could just sneak up behind him and stab him. Get Alison Mack to distract him. Get her to bring him to a seminar. Then we'll sneak up behind and give him an old stab, and then we'll be in charge.
Join us next week for our brand new podcast, Return of the Mac, where we look at
very
the
good.
upcoming probation hearings of Alison Mack.
She was in a cult, Ben. It's gross and horrible. I know I'm joking about it a lot, but she brainwashed a lot of poor innocent
Poor
women
innocent people.
into something horrible. It's not funny, Alison Mack.
So, coming back to that idea of forced indoctrination, the necromongers murder anyone who refuses to join their cult,
Like Judi Dench.
like Judi Dench or Keith David.
Yeah, Keith David. They don't. Is he Muslim?
He's Muslim. Well, you see,
Yeah.
this is the thing. So the Muslim faith, Islam, has transcended Earth and gone to the stars. And he pops up in the first Riddick movie in the same role as, a devout Muslim in the face of horrible monstery things that eat people.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Although no hint in that first movie that there's a giant megalithic space cult roaming across all known space, or in any of the follow-up movies. It's a weird aberration, Chronicles of Riddick, isn't it?
Yeah, it just stands out. It's very different to the original and completely unmentioned in the sequel.
Yeah, despite all the weird supernatural powers and gods and monsters, and it's a weird one.
Yeah,
There's a lot of similarities between Chronicles of Riddick and John Carter of Mars.
Yeah, fair.
In terms of like the ethereal beings who are powering this weird cult thing, and it's there are similarities there. Anyway, it's irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant. It's pretty interesting. So one of my favorite scenes in that, one of the only scenes that I would call very, very good in it is where we see the formerly indoctrinated. He's kind of like a vizier or a. I think he's probably a riff on a Mentat from Dune. There's the weird guy who's sent to hunt down Riddick.
Yeah.
And he has the weird little skull cap thing. Mm-hmm. And it turns out he's from Riddick's original home planet.
Yeah.
And he was indoctrinated decades ago.
Yeah.
And his kind of whole system collapses. He gives up. He drops that facade and gives in to reality again. It's just a really interesting scene where all the indoctrination fades away and he's like, I'm just going to go die now. Bye-bye.
Yeah, all right, I'm off.
I've betrayed my entire life in existence. Never mind.
You're the last of the Furians now, so you're going to have to sneak up behind Carl Urban's mate and stab him.
Carl Urban's mate. Join the Necromongers. Carl Urban's mate. But that kind of death cult has a weird position in space fiction. Because Thanos is the same in Avengers.
Oh yeah, he's obsessed with death.
He's obsessed with death, but it's a cult. That's what Thanos runs.
Is it a cult though? Because he doesn't have that many followers.
No, but his followers speak of him in, well, one of his followers, in fairness, the Nidge from Love Hate.
Yeah. Ebony Maw?
Ebony Maw, yeah. Terrible name.
Okay.
But Ebony Maw gives his little sermon every time he steps up to the plate, and he's like, rejoice, for you are dead at the hands of Thanos. And it's weird, it's cult language. And his bloody vanguard, his little crew of lads are called the children of Thanos.
Yeah.
Like, Thanos uses weird, culty-wulty, nasty stuff.
Language. Yeah.
To try and indoctrinate people. And it works because we see a really early example of indoctrination in the form of Gamora.
Yeah, he stole her as a kid and raised her in the cult.
But he has that whole speech about balance and looking away and seeing the essential need for balance in the universe. It's real weird. It's real weird. And then one day the Kool-Aid wears off for Gamora, really apropos of nothing, because we're just introduced to Gamora and they're like, oh, I don't like this anymore. And then she runs off.
Yeah, but she's like, fuck this.
That's expanded on a bit later. But like, it's interesting that idea of a death cult spanning empires is quite so present in space
Hear
fiction.
me, yeah? Hear me, yeah? And rejoice, yeah? You are about to die, yeah? At the hands of the children of Thanos, you know? Yeah? Be thankful, though, that your meaningless lives are now about to contribute to the balance, yeah?
That's excellent.
Thanks. I did it as Nidge.
That was very good.
I did it as Nidge rather than as Ebony Maw.
That is a deep cut RTE riff joke.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well done.
I can't remember what Ebony Maw sounded like. I did spend a while learning that in his voice, but now I forget what he sounds like.
He does a big kind
rejoice.
Of British upper class thing.
I can't remember what it sounds like though. Doesn't matter, Ben. Let's carry on. You are about to die at the hands of the children of Thanos.
There you go.
It's kind of there. It's around there. It's around there.
Yeah. Good job. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to die, yeah.
At the hands
of my Lord Thanos, yeah.
Right, Ben, get on with it. Go on.
Sorry. Got caught up. Michael, that brings us to my last category in all this. And that's the forgotten.
Right.
And that's the most predatory aspect of it, is where you prey on the people who've been left behind by society.
That's always happening in Buffy. That's not in space, but it is always happening in Buffy.
Yeah, you find the little lost people, and you get them.
Yeah, like in Marvel's The Runaways. Yeah,
not
or the actress Alison Mack.
Yeah, Alison or Alison Mack. Michael, the best example I can think of that happening. Well, no, it's not the best example, but it's very, very relevant to the topic. It's bloody Anakin Skywalker.
Oh, how interesting!
Anakin Skywalker, is a bloody young fella who is a slave. Yeah. Let's not forget.
He's a slave, yeah. On the planet of Naboo.
Okay. He doesn't wear the armor like his daughter in future episodes of Star Wars, but he's a slave. He doesn't have the slave suit.
Oh, that is his daughter. It's not Naboo, is it? It's Tatooine.
Yeah, he's on Tatooine.
Yeah. This is pod racing.
And so Qui-Gon Jinn,
Yeah.
a priest by any other name,
Yeah.
or a monk, whichever you prefer, comes along and he's like, "Oh, you're the chosen one.
Yeah. He says,
he's like,
I've got a very particular set of skills.
I'm going to lift you out of all this."
Mhm.
And Anakin's like, "Sweet as, man. Sweet as."
Now, this is pod racing.
And he tries to use his weird Jedi mind powers on the alien slave owner. And the slave owner's like, "Nah, that shit doesn't work on me. Your weird
I've got
space
wings.
religion is bollocks."
Yeah,
Nope.
get out of here.
Not doing that. So anyway, then Qui-Gon Jinn, quite frankly, starts to spout some rubbish that sounds an awful lot like levels and thetans, where he's like, "Midichlorians, baby.
You're
That's
full
it.
of midichlorians. You're full of them.
You're full of
You
them.
can't see
Do
them,
you know what?
but they're everywhere.
Do you know what? Do you know what? You're full of midichlorians, you are.
You're full of them, you are. Yeah.
Would you ever give over?" Anyway, he does this. He's like, and then the kid is like, "Oh, cool, you're going to lift me and my mum out of it." He's like,
Oh,
I didn't say
here's a
anything
bit of
about a
news.
parental figure or guardian.
Yeah, she doesn't have that many midichlorians, you see.
Oh, I don't know about that now. Don't know about that.
That is
She's-
shit. That is shit. He's a shit. He's an absolute shit. He's left his mam there. He wouldn't have gone mad if he hadn't left his mam there. What did he do that for? What an absolute shit.
But again, you're blaming a child for the rationale of what an adult
No,
should
I'm not
become.
blaming the child. I'm blaming Qui-Gon Jinn. I'm blaming the cult.
Oh, good. Because that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Then,
I think there weren't enough women in leadership in that cult.
Michael, he
Yeah.
has to subscribe to a very strict set of rules, which
He's not allowed
include
to have any sexes.
no sex, classic,
Yeah.
no
Like bloody
attachments,
2020, Ben. Yeah.
and no strong emotions,
Yeah. Get out of here.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
he
I
is
reckon
then
it's their fault.
apprenticed to another priest
Yeah, a
for
young
an,
priest.
an undetermined amount of time,
A sexy young priest, though, this time.
and yet he's not supposed to have attachments.
Hmm.
And my favorite thing about this is one of the best franchises to come out of the Star Wars universe is the Clone Wars cartoons by Dave Filoni.
Yeah, you like
And they explore the extreme limits of that kind of lifestyle, because within the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi falls in love.
With
is-
who? With Anakin?
She's a Mandalorian.
A Mandalorian.
He
Her name
falls-
is Amanda Lorian.
A Mandalorian. Yeah.
Right.
She's a lovely woman. Miss Lorian to you. But he falls in love with a Mandalorian, and that's all explored, and that kind of temptation of the faith is there. And it's pretty interesting. But then, Michael, not only does he not reach the next level of the cult, because he's constantly told, "We do not grant you the rank of master," and he's like, "What the fuck?
What do I have to do?
What do I have to do?" And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, well, fair enough. You are the most powerful. Yep, no, that's fair. And you're very promising, and you're probably going to get more powerful, but no rank of master for you. And
No,
then
can't have it.
his mother dies,
Yeah.
and Yoda gives him an old scolding. Yoda's like, "Oh, you shouldn't have gotten annoyed." And he's
Yeah,
like,
it's
"Oh,
your
I'm
own fault.
sorry.
It's
My
your own
mum
fault.
died."
Yeah.
What a dick am I? And it's just ridiculous.
So unpleasant.
The
It's really
Jedi
their
are a
own
cult,
fault, isn't it?
And it's a load
They
of
brought
bollocks.
They brought it on themselves, Ben.
Yeah, it happened. And that indoctrination happens in waves. He is not the only young child to be snatched away at a young age. Do you know how I know that? Because he goes in and he kills all of them at the
A
end
lot of
the
other
film.
ones, yeah, who've been stripped away from their parent figure. Yeah, they're not. I don't know if I'd let my child go off and join the Jedi.
No!
Are they essentially Tibetan monks, though?
So it's a fusion. Like, the robes themselves are very much Roman Catholic Church Benedictine monk colours and
Yeah.
style, but then
Yeah.
the whole warrior monk concept is exceptionally Buddhist.
Yeah. Interesting.
But again, their
Yeah.
religion is real.
Exactly. It's actually true what they're saying.
Yeah.
It's just probably not necessary that they're not allowed to touch a girl. Yeah. I've sent you a picture, Ben.
You have of Miss Lorian, which is now going
Yeah,
up on
it's
the
Amanda Lorian.
Instagram at some point.
Well, I haven't drawn that, Ben, so that would be stealing. So we
Oh, we
probably
haven't
use-
drawn that, have we not? Okay, sorry, I thought
No,
it was an
Ben.
official character from something.
I don't think so. I think it's a bit of fan art. Benjamin,
Yeah.
you know, when you're creating a religion, Ben, you often use a quasi-mythological, semi-real, someone from the depths of history who, you know, there's probably a hint of real person in them somewhere.
Yeah.
But most of it's probably just mythology and stuff that's built up around the idea of that person. And the real person, who may or may not exist and probably didn't exist, is probably so far removed from the stories of them that the religion which is based on that person, if that person ever could come back, if they ever existed in the first place, they'd probably be quite shocked to see what the religion was.
Yeah, I'll take Who is Jesus Christ for 600, Alex.
Oh, very good, Benjamin. No, I was thinking more, Ben, let's say about 1,500 years ago. You had a kind of noble warrior leader figure who united all of the tribes.
Oh.
And then his life was codified into a series of books, which became the basis for the morals and laws of his society.
I see.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could go Jesus Christ if you wanted. You could also go the Prophet Muhammad if you wanted,
Ooh.
Ben. But I'm talking about Caine.
Of course.
I'm talking about Caine from the Klingon Empire, Ben.
Oh, yes, the Klingon Empire. Of course.
Yeah, the Klingon
of
Empire,
course.
Ben. Caine was a kind of a warrior ascetic who united the tribes of the Klingon Empire in the olden days.
Look at that.
But the interesting thing in Star Trek, Ben, is despite the entirety of Klingon culture being based around the sayings and the beliefs of Caine, they actually clone him.
What?
In the present day, in Star Trek.
That's mental.
So they find a piece of his DNA and they clone him.
That's
and originally everyone was like, oh my God, Caine is back. It's a miracle. It's the second coming of Jesus, of Caine. It's the second coming of Caine. And everyone was like, it's probably not though, is it? Because, you know, that's religion and that's probably not real. But it turns out he's a clone, Ben. And then the whole Klingon Empire is torn asunder thinking, do we follow the clone? Is he Caine? I mean, he's genetically Caine. But does that mean that he has the same beliefs as us in the modern Klingon Empire?
Yeah, see, it gets tricky, doesn't it?
It's one of the best cults. I really enjoy the cult of Caine, Ben.
The cult of Caine. It's pretty interesting,
Yeah.
Michael.
It's
Michael,
one of the best ones.
I have
Yes.
one more to ask you about here.
Go on.
Because if we're talking indoctrination and we're talking forced servitude and we're talking dying for your emperor and stuff like that, it's hard to get through a space cult episode without touching on Warhammer 40k.
For the Emperor!
Yeah, exactly. Indoctrination is pretty much the default setting throughout that bloody universe. There are a couple of examples. The one that's most commonly known as the Space Marines, Michael, which is a cult by any other name. They're worshipping a corpse, essentially.
Well, again, though, Ben, so in Warhammer 40,000, Ben, the Emperor was all of early humanity's psychic might combined into one being.
Ooh.
So on the primordial Earth, Ben, magic existed, but they didn't really understand that it existed in the form. Magic and psychic powers are indistinguishable in the Warhammer universe, Ben.
Okay.
So it's the Force, essentially. You know, it's the Force.
Oh.
And Earth had shamans, Ben. And there were, on primitive prehistoric Earth, there were many, many of these shamans. And the shamans got a glimpse of the future, the dark, dark, horrible, gross future of the universe.
Ugh.
And they were like, well, what the bloody heck are we going to do about that? And then one of them said, I have a brilliant idea. Have you ever heard of the actress Alison Mack? She has come to me with a proposal. And her proposal was, we'll all get together. And I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do a suicide. We'll all do a suicide at the same time. And then we'll be reborn into a golden god of humanity's potential.
You got me.
So that's what they did.
With Alison
They
Mack.
all did. No, Alison Mack wasn't involved. That was just a little joke that I threw in.
Ah, I see.
It's a kind of running gag I've been doing through this whole episode, is constantly referring back to horrible person Alison Mack. Because she real life indoctrinated people into a gross cult. Benjamin, so they did that. They did a suicide and they were reborn as the Emperor, Ben.
Oh.
And the Emperor, Ben, unlike many of these cult figures, has real powers.
Fair.
He is the embodiment of humanity's psychic potential. And he's the best. He's a paragon, Ben. He's a paragon in everything.
So he's perfect.
He's perfect in every way, except
Nice.
he might be a bit of a prick.
Except you might be a bit what?
A bit of a prick.
Bit of a brick.
Yeah, he might be a bit of a prick because he's so perfect. So anyway, Ben, he came up with this plan to save humanity from its gross and horrible future, but he's betrayed by some of his own creations and the powers of chaos, Ben, and he's withered away into a husk, a gross husk which is barely kept alive on a throne.
Damn it.
And the most interesting thing, Ben, is a council forms around him. And it's this council who decide how to interpret the words and thoughts of the emperor, which results in the horrible, gross time that is the Warhammer 40,000 universe.
So the Roman Catholic Church gets hold of a desiccated corpse and then starts making orders.
It could be the Roman Catholic Church. It's very heavily based on the Roman Catholic Church because it's all about bishops and archlectors, and it is basically what happens when there was this golden god who was genuinely seemed to exist purely for the betterment of humanity, and he dies, and his corpse is used as the kind of power base of this gross, bureaucratic, self-serving, racist, xenophobic, awful organization.
Oh dear.
But then people live their lives in complete servitude to it, Ben. But some of the most interesting characters in Warhammer fiction are the ones who have a bit of a kind of, yeah, you know yourself, but not really attitude.
Michael, would you have recommended reading for anyone who wanted to learn more about that?
No,
Damn
because
it.
I can't recommend it as it's not a wonderful story. And I'll say this over and over again, Ben, anytime I give it an opportunity. The story of the Warhammer universe isn't a fantastic story.
Fair.
It's a fantastic setting.
It does work very well.
You can read, if you want, the Horus Heresy series of books, which is a collection of books is probably about 40 novels deep at this stage.
Oh, God.
Which chronicles the entire period of the Emperor.
Oh, my God.
From his birth on primordial Earth all the way up and past his enthroning on this gross throne that keeps him alive.
No, it's too much. Sorry, you lost me at 40 books.
It's a bit much. I wouldn't be too pushed if I were you, but it's a fascinating concept, if not a fantastic story to be part of.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Michael, what an interesting little space cult episode we've had.
Oh,
Which you did very well there. Well done, us.
Oh, okay.
And do you have more?
No.
No? Okay, well, that's good. Let's go drink some Kool-Aid together, Michael.
We'll go drink
Ladies
some
and gentlemen.
Yes.
Not you, the listeners.
Oh, the listeners, yeah. I've
Our
heard
followers. Our devoted followers.
Devoted followers. That's gross, Ben.
Yeah, sorry, lads. Sorry. To our lovely listeners, what are your favourite space cults?
Yeah,
Did we miss
people
any?
say any on the Instagram, Ben?
Yeah, you can find us all over the place, lads. If you want to get in touch
I'm asking, did people tell us some on the Instagram, Ben?
Yeah, let us know. You can find us at Sean Rebueg,
No, but
SEOMRABEHG.
Did people tell us some on the internet?
Oh, sorry, I missed that completely. I
What's
have your
going wrong
headphones
with your
turned down,
brains?
Michael, so that we don't get cross-channel contamination.
Okay, but now you can't hear me.
Well, I can hear you, but I can't hear your lovely dulcet tones in the same way that I would like to, Michael. It doesn't have the direct authoritative bent that I have. We only really have the one Michael comment from Instagram, which was from a good friend of the podcast, Pup and Riker, the one that justified the making of Picard.
Oh, very good. Yeah, people didn't like Picard that much.
No, Picard didn't do well in the end.
No, not wonderfully popular.
Weird Star Trek cult that got it made. But that was it from the listeners. But it's not too late, ladies and gentlemen. We could always make a Space Cults Part 2 if you let us know your favourite space cults. You can get in touch with us in a number of ways. You can find us on the interwebs at www.seanrebueg.com.
Means Tiny Room in Irish.
Or you can find us on the Instagram at Sean Rebueg.
It kind of still means tiny room in Irish. It doesn't really mean tiny room in Irish, but it means small room.
It means small room, but for the purposes of marketing, we're going to call it the tiny room.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can get in touch with us in those two places. If you are listening to us on Spotify,
what's wrong with you?
on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on YouTube,
Yeah,
please
any of those places.
consider giving us some kind of review or feedback in the form of a little thumbs up and a subscribe on the YouTubes.
Yeah,
a bloody
on YouTube,
review
for
with a
example.
star rating on the Apple Podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
A bloody review with some star ratings on the Google Podcasts. And the best way that you can get our podcast out there, if you enjoy it on Spotify, is just share it in your Instagram story to all your
Give it a
pals.
little share. Give it a little share.
Or send it directly. Do that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had enough of us this week and you'd like a little bit more, there's a new episode of Collecting Issues that's already come out. You can check it out on Harrow County. Please.
Ooh, so spooky.
It's very spooky. Very spooky. Please join us in 1 week's time where we're going to be talking about the Cold War aesthetic and how it influenced pop culture.
Yeah, it's all about sexy spies.
It's all about sexy spies with thick accents.
Da.
Yeah, and that's it from us this week, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.
That's Vidania.